Welcome to the broadcast. This is Where Life Meets Music, here at On Deck Sound Studio. Tracy Walton, musician, singer, songwriter, instructor, author, and producer. Poised, he's in position to join me in conversation. I am pleased to be joined, he didn't really have to go too far, with a man of all trades, Tracy Walton. Welcome. I'm actually not welcoming you to your own sound studio, but thank you for doing this, my friend.
Thanks for having me here today.
My pleasure indeed. I want to start by tapping into your musical vein first. How did you come up with the idea, the thought, the notion to make the bass your musical voice?
Well, I think bass was kind of the instrument that spoke to me as a teen. Certainly, John Paul Jones, Geezer Butler, from Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, respectively, were kind of the sounds I was drawn to. Like a lot of bass players, I was in a situation where the band I was in, that I was singing in, needed a bass player. So that certainly got me there as well. And then, it's for me, it's the right instrument. I think a lot of people have things they're just designed for. I mean, I'm not really designed for electric guitar as much as I have Mason hands that are good for grabbing a bass and choking notes out of it. So,
and then when you think about the tone, the sound that you wanted to capture on that instrument,
it changes. For me, at first, it was just Geezer Butler. I just wanted to be Geezer Butler. And there's times where I'll be playing something that has nothing to do with anything that sounds like Black Sabbath, and people say, wow, I can hear Geezer Butler and you're playing. But it switched over the years. It was John Paul Jones. Then as I got into jazz, it was Ray Brown. I still, as I play upright, I try to just sound like Ray Brown. And now for me, it's McCartney. I mean, he's just, if I could just, play McCartney lines, I'd be a happy guy.
So those guys have they have their fingerprints on those particular, on that particular sound.
Yes.
But if you were to characterize the Tracy Walton signature style, it would be what? Those are great influences, but you want to put your own fingerprints on that.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think I have a thing at this point. I play a 74p bass that I've been playing since I was 18. It has 20-year-old flat wounds on it. It does a thing. I do a thing. I think it's a melodic voice. I don't hear it. And again, a lot of that comes from the McCartney thing, but it's my own take on playing a melodic role. I think Belle of the Fall influenced a lot of that. It was a duo where I was filling a lot of that space, and certainly my voice changed in that, becoming much more of a melodic thing, I think, but still holding down the groove.
So music enhances. Music augments. The beauty or the beautiful thing about music is, finish the sentence. Beautiful thing about music is.
The beautiful thing about music is everyone gets to have their own world in it. So it's this kind of pliable world that it's not a concrete thing where you walk in and we all kind of have the same experience. Music is at least for me, there's different streams to take. There's different, we can all get lost in it in our own way. It means something to all of us. It's this kind of fluid form that works.
But it's still, though, Tracy, it's still unique to musicians. Each individual musician, it's unique. Each listener, it's unique. And it touches everybody in a unique way.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
To some people, it touches them in the heart, some in the mind, some in the feel, some in their entire inner being. And for you?
For me, yeah, it touches my entire being, I think. It touches me in all the spots, It hits the intellect. If I'm listening to Dylan, that's like it's hitting that part where the lyrics. If I'm listening to, Freddie King, it hits the groin where it's supposed to hit,
And so when you put together mind, heart, inner being, and you bring them all together in concert, you fuse that emotion, that visceral feeling all together, and it comes through on your bass. You want it to sound like?
Yeah, I mean, I want it to be a little otherworldly, where it's taking people from this plane of just being in the present moment to being, in it. And that's what I'm trying to do as a player. I'm always trying to. I try to practice enough and get fluent enough on my instrument that I can just be the music rather than think about the music. The second I start thinking, I don't really want to play anymore. If I'm yeah, I always say to people, it's like this conversation. I'm not sitting here thinking, and when you explain it this way, it gets weird because I start to think about it. But I'm not sitting here thinking, okay, I just said something. I now need to have a noun next. And now I should probably have an adjective because we're just having a conversation. And I know where the holes are. And when I pause for something, you realize you're supposed to respond. And so I try to get to that point in music where the language is just free flowing. And then through that, hopefully it's a vessel for people to jump inside of it.
So let's stay with that. From that vessel, from that vehicle, here's you, whether it's in the studio, on stage. So here's you, here's your instrument. There's somewhat of a chasm, and here's the audience. But to bring that all together, to pull it as a vacuum that pulls them into your music, into your inner being and what you're feeling. Speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's different in different situations. I think live, for me, I part of it is I feel like, the live show is a little bit more coming from like, a Sinatra school of like, it's a show, it's a theater. We're there to like have some drinks and have some fun and have some laughs and tell jokes and tell stories and get people to kind of, where everyone's part of the show. It's not a show where you're going to come and just, where it's one way. You're just watching a performance. So, I think that helps on that end to bring people in and close that distance.
And you want them to feel what you feel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then at that point, hopefully, I find that if I'm in it, if I'm really in it and I'm not like thinking anymore and I'm just in the music, it tends to spill over and people are there.
You mentioned Ray Brown.
Yep.
Geezer, and John Paul Jones. Let's fast forward to music today. What do you like? For
new artists, or what am I listening to for new stuff?
Precisely.
What have I checked out lately that I really like? It's funny for me. A lot of times I'm producing so much that's the music I'm in. Mm-hmm. I just produced a record for Christy Flag, which I think is a killer record, and so I was in that for a long time. I still, what records have I heard lately? Chuck Prophet. I've been listening to a lot. I think his new record is killer. I still been listening to John Prine's last record, which I think is brilliant. I think it's his best record. And what's the song he closes with? When I Get to Heaven, which is brilliant. Like, it's his last song, and he says what he's going to do.
Especially,
yeah, and it's amazing, you know, and it's kind of really comforting. It's like, leave it to John Prine to say, no, it's cool, man. I'm super happy. I'm going to be there, right. And everyone, you're like, oh, cool, and he's good. You know?
Like Warren Zevon when he wrote his last album, he knew he was getting ready to move on.
Sure.
What's music missing today?
One of it, I think, music is missing a platform to bring the cream to the top and let us have a collective conscious again, where it used to be. And I mean, you were one of the guys that, like, you were spinning, whether it was Tom Petty or it was AC/DC, or it was whatever it was on that rock station. We all knew those songs, and everyone had this collective thing, where now there's not that at least in a rock or a sense of music that I'm listening to. Most people, I'm sure half the people listening to this, I bet more, don't know who Chuck Prophet is. If the world were just, he'd be on the radio right now, and we'd all know those songs.
Well, it's unfortunate you mentioned John Prine. A lot of people perhaps don't know him.
Sure.
I had mentioned Warren Zevon, and it was "Take Me in Your Heart for a While."
Okay.
The last song.
Yeah.
And everybody knew where he was going.
Sure.
It's unfortunate, and that's why I'm asking you: is there anything missing in music today? Is there that connection?
I guess I don't think there's anything missing in music. I think it's just we're missing the vehicle to bring it to people. Again, I'll say it like that Christy Flag record. It's amazing. Like, if you played that record 5 times a day during drive time on radio, and everyone listened to radio again, you'd be like, oh yeah, those are great songs. Chuck Prophet's last record. So I think that's missing. I think sometimes, you could say, too many, and I even hear, I'll have people come in, and the first thing they want to do, I'll have great bands come in, and the first thing they start talking about is cutting everything into a click track, starting with the drums, then the bass, and then putting it together. And it's like, man, if we lined up all of your favorite records, none of them were made like that, So, like, some of that's there, but I think I think people are getting hip to that. I think, and people are trying to make records again, where human beings are playing with each other and interacting. And there's breath, and there's Matt Starr was here yesterday, and we were cutting. He was doing a cover of an Audio Slave tune. They were going to do a live remote thing from different places and have some people play on it. Show Me How to Live, the Audio Slave tune. And, we pulled it up, and it's clearly not to a click track, and it's cool as hell.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And we'll have to get Matt in here. We'll have to get Christy in. We'll have to convince them to do this.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I'm sure, I'm hoping, we're going to have a lot of interesting people in here that are already excited about it. And, it should be really good. But I think that's, so that is missing in ways. But again, there's, I'm cutting records here, and I know there's a lot of studios that are saying, let's play drums, bass, guitar, and track the rhythm section
in real time.
And the chorus is supposed to speed up. That's,
From the musician front over to the producer front, I'll have you change your hat, as I mentioned. Yeah. Tracy of all trades, On the producing end of things, when you think about one, maybe a couple of particular people who helped you with your desire to forge that path to producing, who were they?
Let me think about that. To really get into like full-time producing, or just get into...
that passion to want to do that became more intense?
I think I started it just making my own records, and just really being interested in how records were put together. And then I made a bunch of records with John Roper, who's a buddy of mine, and he certainly influenced a lot of the choices I make. I was just talking about it yesterday. He came up with a bunch of different people, but Paul Lecco was a producer, and he had Music Mansion up in Sharon. So there's a tradition that gets handed down. He did, Hey, Hey, Goodbye was his big famous song, Na, 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 which made him, millions of dollars. And he wrote Green Tambourine, which was, yeah. And he produced Artist Speedwagon, a bunch of big records. Yeah, and then I think just getting into it, getting into just getting in there and making records and figuring out how to do it. And I listen back and some of like everyone else. I read Ted Templeman's book recently. Ooh. And he was like, man, the first couple
Van Halen did the Doobie Brothers and on and on and on.
Little Feat and all that stuff. And he looks back and he's like, man, the first Little Feat and like some of those records, God, I blew it, man. I stunk at producing. I didn't know what I was doing. And, and I look back and there's some stuff. I'm like, ooh, man, I wish I was better at it then. But you get in there and you start just making records.
We talked about your sound on your instrument. The On Deck Sound Studio sound you're trying to create or you have created. And it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Tell me about the sound that you're trying to capture here at On Deck Sound Studios.
I try, and it's funny, I talk with people about this, and Ted Templeman's a good example. I'm from that school, more from the Ted Templeman school, where if you listen to the Doobie Brothers, sound nothing like Van Halen, sound nothing like Little Feat, down the line.
Yeah, but that's the work of a great producer who doesn't produce everybody the same. With all due respect, when I listen to, we'll say Jeff Lynne, listen to ELO, if you listen to Tom Petty's solo or Traveling Wilburys or even George Harrison, you can hear that that's Jeff Lynne. Yeah. Whereas if you listen to Mutt Lange produce, let's say, Foreigner, or you listen to him producing Def Leppard, it doesn't sound, each band has its own sound.
Sure, but it's still going to be a Mutt Lange record.
It'll still be a Mutt Lange,
with
right.
him, it's going to be like, we're making a Mutt Lange record.
Right.
But
AC/DC doesn't matter. Right.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, the famous one is probably Phil Spector. I mean, it's going to be a Phil Spector.
Everybody has a wall of sound.
It's going to have that sound. It's going to be that record. I try to pride myself in getting inside the artist's head and really making their record.
I want to ask you, when you get somebody here into the studio, you approach it obviously as a musician. You approach it as their producer. You try to bring out the very best you can in them. Do you bring together Tracy, the musician, and Tracy, the producer, or do you just try to bring them in as the producer and just say, it's not my job to make you sound like a Tracy Walton CD. My job is to bring out the very best in you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always how I'm producing, is trying to, one, hear their songs, hear their story, hear what they're listening to, and like what they want to sound like, and try to, because everyone has the sound, has most people. Some don't, and then that's different. But most people have a sound in there, and they hear their songs in a certain way, and it's hard to explain. The famous one is Carlos Santana telling a producer, he's like, I want it to sound like a flower opening on the sun. And the engineer looks like, what the hell does that sound like, man? I don't know what that is.
Right.
But now you've got to try to find out what does that sound like to him. And that's the challenge and interesting part of a producer engineer for me.
I can say with my own ears, when you gave me a copy of Christy Flagg, and I listened to that, and then I listened to Simone Marie, both produced here, both entirely different CDs. And two entirely different artists.
Yeah.
You brought out the best in them.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's what I try. yeah, that's always the goal for me. And I have guys that I bring in. There's a sound of Glenn Nelson. It's really rare that Glenn doesn't play on a record that comes out of here. He plays all the keyboard stuff here. I play stuff if it's super simple, but when I tell people, like, if we need more than 4 fingers, I'm out. Like, we're gonna get someone who plays piano. And I tell people on drums, if you need Levon Helm, I can do it. If we need Bonham, we got to call someone. And usually for that, I use Steve Peck, who's an amazing drummer. He's in this area, and we've been working together for years. Certainly, and it's weird. I'm not sure if I should break, what is it called? The wall. What's it called? The fourth dimension, or the fourth wall. Right. But certainly Julia Autumn Ford is sings on a lot of records here. She may be in the room right now, but she's certainly, and Julia was in Belle of the Fall, and certainly those records that we made together definitely influenced my aesthetic, because we really got to just dive in as a producer when you don't have any budget or any time limit, and you can chase every hole or jump into every hole and really chase it. There was songs we did, 120 vocal takes, and like, and it turned out it was I won't make fun of her, but it was maybe the third take was already the one.
I'm in no way trying to put you on the spot, my friend. No way.
Yeah.
But if you were to have your druthers and could have produced I'll make it easier for you. Any album in rock history and any album in jazz history that, when you pick up the liner notes and saw produced by Tracy Walton, the rock album and the jazz album would be?
Oof. Wow, that's an interesting question for Yeah, I might go with Zeppelin 4 for the rock album, just because it's like, I still listen to that and don't understand how they did it. It just doesn't sound like they're in a studio. It's just like, it sounds like another world.
Yeah, Peter Grant and Jimmy Page doing their thing,
Yeah, it's just magic. It's like, wow, that doesn't, do you know what I mean? Like, some records you're like, oh, I can see the drum set. I can see where they put it. I can see, like, everyone, I can see human beings standing in a room making music. Zeppelin 4, it just sounds like, man, I don't even know what that is.
I did a broadcast from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. Flew in, did 2 days, flew right back out. And the curator took me through after hours. They had closed the museum, and he brought me through. And a couple of the things I got to see that were just engraved in my mind's eyes, where he took me behind the ropes and let me stand behind John Lennon's glasses, still bloodstained, from December of 1980, and look from behind to see the prescription, look behind. And the other one there are 2 other things that really fascinated me. One was the Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band uniforms, all but George Harrison's. They don't have it. And he let me stand behind John Bonham's drums for the 4th album.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So that'd definitely be one. And then other than that, it's funny, like, sometimes I'll say, just get rid of all the Beatles records. Like, if you say who was the greatest band ever, let's just discount the Beatles, because they are the best band, and it's, they're always the answer. So it'd be hard not to pick a Beatles album as the producer. Jazz, though, it'd be I'd probably go Sinatra and Basie at the Sands, live at the Sands.
Great album, yeah. Great
just
album.
Just because I get to hang with
That's
Frank,
a great album, though.
And it's a killer album. I mean, yeah.
In this life so far to date, and you're just at the precipice, really, of doing everything you want to do, what do you treasure and cherish the most?
Musically, or just in general? Just
whatever you want, my friend. I just throw them out there and let them bounce around. You got to pick it up.
Gosh. I think I yeah, I think I cherish like just being in a good spot with like friends, family, like, and I like to think that, there's a couple of people who might say bad things about me, but I think there's most people would say I'm there for them, and like, yeah, I think that's I forget the actual question, but that's kind of that's
Good.
yeah.
And in this career, what do you look forward to doing next? Where do you see yourself 3-5 years down the line?
I'm starting to just start to hear new music again, so I'm excited for that, to see where that goes. I'll probably make another solo record. I'm excited about that. And I think I'm still really excited about making records. I'm excited every day when I get in here to make records, so I can get better at it. And so I think I'll be just making records and hopefully here with you interviewing amazing people. And
You're very kind. You're very, very kind. With the last 90 seconds we have remaining, as a musician then, so that's the producing end, back to the musician end. You've done trio work, you've done jazz work, you've done punk work, on and on and on. Any musical theater you want to enter that you haven't done yet?
Not really. I mean, I've kind of, I've played with a bunch of really, I've played with David Bromberg, I've played with, Vernon Reid, I've played with some big names. I've played all over the country and all over, and yeah, not really. I'm content and happy.
You're good to go.
Yeah, man. I make
You're
good
good to
music.
go.
I have good people around me, and no, I'm happy. It's a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And that is our broadcast for this time around. Thank you for being here with us. On behalf of all of my colleagues here at On Deck Sound Studio, may your happiness increase always, in all ways, and keep me in your thoughts.
Some days I care to be here, some days it don't. Some days it comes together, other days it won't. Someday I know I'll be moderately unknown. Someday. Someday.